All right, hey, Steven Hale here from the Nashville Banner, and I'm here with two of my colleagues who are talking to Tennesseans every day. Sarah Grace Taylor and Stephen Elliott. How are you guys doing?
I'm talking to Tennesseans every day.
I'm talking to Stevens every day.
I walked into that, didn't I? But you literally are talking to Tennesseans every day, and that's why we want to talk to you, because we're going to talk about elections today, primary elections particularly, which are coming up. And as people are hearing this on Friday, early voting has begun today. And we'll run through, when did you say? August 1st. So we'll get back to that. We'll remind everyone of key dates. But I have a question for you guys first, because I was thinking about this when it comes to elections. Do you have a formative election memory, like either from your childhood or as a reporter, anything? And I can, if it helps, I'll start with mine, which is the 2000 presidential election. I grew up in Florida, so we were right in Florida when all that was happening. My dad was a real news junkie.
Brooks Brothers riot.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. But I just have this core memory of course, my dad had CNN or whatever on watching election returns. And there was a moment when it passed to like, okay, we are not turning the TV off until this is concluded. Like, we will be here until this is resolved. And it always stuck with me and probably made me the weirdo I am today.
This isn't a childhood experience, but it was at my first reporting job in a small town in Colorado, and it was a race for mayor, and they had instant runoff voting there, and the town of only a couple thousand people, so the three main candidates for mayor each had like 400 votes or so, and the two top vote getters tied. Exactly, had the exact number of votes is what we put in the paper, because that was the preliminary count. It didn't really matter because it went to an instant runoff. Neither of them had cleared 50%, and then one of the candidates won. However, when we referred to it later, we would refer to it having been a tie. But later they did some, I don't know if there were auxiliary ballots or whatever that were counted, but one of the candidates had gotten more votes that night. It was the guy who won, but whenever we had referred to it as a tie later on, he was very upset.
Fair.
Yeah.
I will also go with my first reporting job. I was in Middle Tennessee, which is outside of Knoxville, very small. And we were like very much still print paper. You could not work from home if you wanted to, because you had to use the CMS like at your desktop. So I had covered an election. It was too close to call for this guy, Don Mull, who was running for one last term after like 8 terms as the mayor, but the mayor was elected out of the council members because it was a small town. And it was like too close to call that night. We ran the story. I came back into the newsroom at like 6 a.m. the next day to see if there had been an update. He lost by 7 votes or something like that. It was single digits. And I called him to get a comment, and he didn't know. So I had to tell this guy that he lost his final run for office at 7 a.m. or whatever it was.
Tough. That's a tough beat. Now,
he was a real gentleman about it, and I was mortified and 22 and hated it.
Did you? Oh gosh, yeah. Did you say, like, when you asked, were you just like, hey, just calling to see if you have a comment on the results? And he was like, what do you mean? Or did you say like...
I think I said something like, had you seen them? Like, I didn't come in hot.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, I just was going for a walk. And I was like, oh. And he said, well... And so I had to like tell him on the phone. Would not recommend to a friend.
Yeah, this is reminding me, Stephen, you had the experience of telling the mayor, but it was more welcome news to him that the transit referendum had passed, right?
Yeah.
I think we have a picture of this moment, even you showing him the results or the...
It was like the first wave of results, which made it clear that
it was going to pass, yeah. That's fun. Makes me think of that newsroom meme that always goes around of him informing the pilot or flight attendant or whatever.
Yes.
Different
outcome in that case.
Yes. You look like you were going to jump in there, Sarah Grace, and I want you to.
I was just going to pile on because I like the newsroom, but it's not important.
Well, we can talk. That's a whole other podcast, which we can do, and I think we should at some point.
A newsroom rewatch podcast?
Hey, that's probably happened already, but if it hasn't, let's do it. Now you've distracted me. I'm thinking of different crazy storylines on that show, but we're going to talk about the primary elections. I thought we would start with House 59 because you're hearing this on a Friday. We're talking on Wednesday when your story about this race has just published on our website. And you've written about the House District 59 Democratic primary. Tell us about that, and we can chat about it a little.
So we're talking state house district because we'll also talk about some congressional.
Yes, thank you. I I should clarify that.
The seat currently held by Caleb Himmer in South Nashville, think Belmead area. Caleb Himmer served for 2 terms, is a Democrat. He is not running for re-election. So it's an open seat. The last time it was open, it was pretty close between Democrats and Republicans, and Himmer won it. So it'll be an interesting general. But before that, we have 4 primary candidates who are all like pretty community active Democrats in the city, philanthropists, activists, that kind of thing. And with a state race where it's hard to do polling or really know what's going to happen, it genuinely could be any of the 4 of them next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's Rick Ewing, Angie Lawless, Mark Proctor, and Beth West. And you wrote this story, and we were kind of talking about how these stories can be challenging because sometimes in a small district, in a state house district primary, there's not a ton of huge differences between the candidates all the time. It's not as obvious to sort of sort them. You framed it in a way I thought was useful and helpful, made it kind of make sense as I was reading it, just of each of these candidates kind of came to politics in a different way. But I'm interested in any other observations you have about that race in general. But
yeah, I mean, generally all of the candidates, this is the neighborhood that was pretty affected by the Covenant shooting, and then is not very far from Antioch High School. So school shootings is the thing that all of these people, each one of these candidates is parents. They're all running on school safety, gun safety generally. This is a popular issue in that side of town. Voices for Safer Tennessee. There's a lot of those folks in that district, so that's very much the central issue that I hear them talk about. But then there's also like common Democratic issues that they're all aligned on, which is like Medicaid expansion, maternal health care, that kind of thing. But the difference is, where did they get involved in politics? So Ewing, for example, kind of a philanthropist for a long time, businessman in the city. Proctor is a former THP lieutenant colonel, so he used to give out handgun permits and now wants to regulate this, and he's got kind of an interesting story. And then the other 2, both of these women are mothers. You've got Lawless, who is an attorney, and she got involved after Roe v. Wade, or she got involved after the Covenant shooting. And then Beth West got involved after the Roe v. Wade was overturned. So all of these people have these political moments in the last handful of years where they've decided to get very involved.
Yeah. And you tell me how much you think this matters. It's sometimes hard to gauge in a race like this. But Mark Proctor, you reported, has the endorsement of Caleb Hemmer, who just decided not to run again, and Phil Bredesen and Megan Barry, former governor and former mayor. And then Beth West has endorsements from Afton Bain, who people will know as a Nashville activist and now state rep, and who ran for Congress herself, and Gloria Johnson. Like I said, I'm never sure how much these things matter. In this House district, it seems like maybe it could, because the whole district is in Nashville, and people in Nashville will know who these people are that are endorsing them, so that may mean something to some voters, but just noting that.
Yeah, I would say the conventional wisdom maybe would make Proctor the favorite, I guess, because he's got the endorsement, he's got more fundraising, he's got bigger names on his side. But certainly West would say, and I think her appeal is that she's been out doing more grassroots stuff, trying to drive voter turnout in previous elections. So she's got that kind of activist camp on her side, I think.
Mm-hmm. So while we're talking state level races, are there other state level primaries, by which I mean state legislative primaries, that you're kind of looking at, covering, that you think are interesting? There are obviously a number of them, but any that jump to mind?
Yeah, not really in Nashville. So the 59 seat is the open one and the most contested primary. So that's the race that we're definitely watching the closest in the state house. Obviously the governor's race, but I think we'll talk about that later.
Yes, we will definitely come to the governor's race.
And then the rest of it is all congressional stuff, which changed a lot this summer.
Yes, and so as you mentioned, all new congressional districts. Steven, you're covering the 5th, or the new 5th,
Yes.
And so I had to check today, because for a second I thought I was in the 5th. I'm not. Turns out I'm in the 6th. But you can actually look up your district by using our How to Vote guide on our website. But tell us about the Fighting 5th, which used to be, people will know this, the 5th used to be just all of Nashville. Jim Cooper was a longtime 5th congressional district representative, and now it's a totally different map.
Yeah, so for years, the 5th was essentially Nashville. It had some other pieces tacked on, but it was reliably Democratic. Jim Cooper was the representative for a long time. after the 2020 census, which is when redistricting normally occurs, they carved up Nashville into 3 congressional districts to get rid of that Democratic seat. They were successful. Andy Ogles won that open seat in 2022. Jim Cooper didn't run again because he said he wouldn't win. And so there were a bunch of Republicans that jumped in because now all of a sudden there's this new open Republican seat. Andy Ogles won that. He's been a controversial representative for the past 4 years for a number of reasons. There's been a lot of reporting about his resume and things that he's claiming on his resume or in his campaigns that haven't turned out to be true. He's a very provocative public figure in the sense that he likes to talk about Nashville's mayor a lot and say that he's committing crimes and say the National Guard needs to go in. And he said some pretty Islamophobic stuff about the Muslim community. And so there have been efforts in both of his reelection campaigns by, I guess you'd call them more traditional Republicans, to take that seat from him. There have also been fairly prominent people run as Democrats in that seat because, while it is favorable to Republicans, it is on the closer side. But anyway, all that to say, they redistricted again, which I'm sure you heard about.
No, what happened?
Yeah, so now the map is all jumbled.
Yes.
The 5th district, which used to include much of the southern part of Davidson County, some of the same areas that we just talked about in House District 59, now is not in Nashville at all. So basically where it is now is it's the western portions of Williamson and Murray counties to the south of us, and then it kind of makes this weird snake rainbow thing. It goes up northwest to the Kentucky border, rural Tennessee, then it comes down the Mississippi River along the far western border of the state into central Memphis. So it covers the middle of Memphis, it covers rural northwestern Tennessee, and then it kind of comes back down to Nashville's fairly prosperous southern suburbs. I guess that's the district.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's running?
Yes. Who is running? I'm just trying to, I'm hesitating because I'm literally trying to picture as you're saying.
A snake rainbow?
There's really no, in
It makes you want to do cloud painting. You ever do cloud painting? You look at the clouds and kind of find shapes in them. Like, we need to do that with these districts. Like, what do they look like? Because some of them are quite absurd.
I know this is not the most important element of this redistricting, but it has made it very challenging as a journalist who writes about these things to describe them in a very few amount of words. You can't just say, you used to be able to say in a lot of cases, like, this district, which is mostly to the west of Nashville, this district, which encompasses Nashville, this district, which is in northeastern Tennessee, whatever. You can't really do that anymore because of, I just took a whole minute to describe the geography of this district. And I do think that is not only relevant to us, I think it's relevant to the constituency and the campaigns.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard for you to say, well, I'm a West Tennessee farmer, because you're also trying to represent Memphis and Williamson County. I mean, those are not relevant to those people.
Yeah. Well, and for when it comes to covering it too, right? Like, in the old 5th district or two redistrictings ago, you would basically have been covering Nashville. You could have done a lap around the district, and you're not in your reporting for a story that, unlikely to spend a day in Williamson County, then drive over to Shelby County, then it's just, it gets a little unwieldy.
Which also brings up, sorry, this is like the most annoying part of redistricting to me is like, never mind the politics of it, but the practical things that your congressional office has to do.
Services, yeah.
How are they going to do that across all these counties? Like, there's not going to be a convenient office.
I actually asked, Charlie Hatcher is one of the candidates in the 5th district, and I've been curious about that myself, because traditionally a member of Congress has 3 or so district offices, and in a case where you have a piece in Nashville and a piece of Clarksville, and you're in a geography with some larger cities, you could kind of place them in convenient places around the district. But in the case of the 5th, it's like there aren't major cities up in that northern stretch, and even if there were, you'd be far away. It's very long and narrow, so you're going to be far away from a big chunk of your district, no matter where you are. And it's also hard for campaigning, I think, because to get from Nashville to Memphis, I mean, you can't even go through the district. You have to kind of cut across a few others.
Yeah. Yeah. But you were about to say who's running in this race, so tell us that.
Yeah, so Andy Ogles is running for re-election. Before the redistricting, a guy named Chaz Mulder, who's the mayor of Columbia, he's a Democrat. He flipped that mayoralty from a Republican incumbent in 2018. So he's also the son-in-law of Craig Fitzhugh, who was a longtime Democratic leader in the state house from Ripley. So one of these last few rural Democrats. So I think Democrats had a lot of high hopes for his candidacy. The National Democratic Congressional Committee had backed him and was willing to put in a lot of money to this race because it was kind of a closer to purple seat, and because they had what they thought was a really good candidate on paper. So now they've redrawn it. So he's no longer in the district. They kind of carved his house out. I think he said one thing to me about he could pull a skeet in the 5th district and hit it in the 9th district or whatever. So,
That's amazing.
So they also
Tennessee rocks.
Yeah.
They also drew out Charlie Hatcher, who is running as a Republican against Andy Ogle in this primary that's coming up. So Charlie Hatcher, you might have heard of Hatcher Family Dairy. Their milk products are in various stores and restaurants. He also was the state veterinarian for a long time. He was the commissioner of agriculture for almost all of Bill Lee's 2 terms as governor. And now he's running against Andy Ogles. This is a similar kind of pitch to 2 years ago when Metro Councilmember Courtney Johnston ran against Andy Ogles in the Republican primary. They're kind of saying, we'll give you all the same politics, all the same support for different policies without all the news stories that might embarrass you that you're getting from Andy Ogles. And it didn't work 2 years ago. We'll see if it works in this primary. Charlie Hatcher's getting a lot of support from kind of similar camps. It's like the old school Tennessee Republicans, Bob Corker, Bill Haslam, those crowds. Mm-hmm. So both Hatcher and Chaz Mulder, who's in the Democratic primary, were drawn out of the seat, decided to run in it anyway. There are several other Democrats running as well, including some from Memphis who jumped in the race after it was redrawn.
Yeah. And so the other congressional race, and our colleague Anna wrote a story about the 6th district, which is online now, the Republican primary between Van Hillary and State Rep Johnny Garrett. Van Hillary, a former congressman, and Johnny Garrett, a state rep that Sarah Race you're familiar with, obviously, from covering the State House. Anna's not here with us. People can read that story, but anything jump out to you about that district or that race?
That one is interesting to me. It's an open seat because John Rose is the current member. He is running for governor, so he's not running for re-election. So Johnny Garrett and Van Hillary are the 2 most well-known candidates. It'll be interesting to see.
And am I right? Van Hillary was working for John Rose, and Johnny Garrett is, I think, as far as state reps go, gotten pretty well known, and has some endorsements, including from former collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and that district still does include I think it's an even larger chunk of Nashville, but I could be wrong.
It's more Nashville, less Sumner County, right? The way it was redrawn.
So it mostly goes out to the east of Nashville.
Did Johnny Garrett get drawn out and decide to run anyway? I think that's what happened.
I think his house was kept in, but it's a very small part of the county that's still in, and most of his state legislative district is, and his home base of Sumner County is almost entirely not in the district anymore.
That was one of the sticking points when they were doing redistricting between the House and the Senate, was how much to cut Sumner County there.
You know, one thing that I wonder is, and we sort of talked about this earlier, is with these geographies being so jumbled and so confusing, does it really matter anymore? It used to be a really good attack line to say, oh, this is a carpetbagger. This is someone
he doesn't live here.
He doesn't even live in the district. But these districts don't make any geographic sense, so it's hard to say, like, well, he doesn't understand.
He's not from around here.
He doesn't understand what the people in this snake-like amalgamation that runs through 4 different regions of the state, but one. I mean, it's like all these districts touch all different types of parts of the state, so it's hard to say, like, you don't live in this part.
I mean, it matters in the sense that people who know and have voted for Johnny Garrett before won't be voting in that election, and I think that's the really only relevance.
Yeah.
Is like the actual political capital there. But no, I think you're right. These people who are like barely and weirdly drawn out of their districts probably don't lose any validity with their constituents.
Well, and it also, I mean, this is a point we've made before and many people have made, but it seems like another area where it will feed into the nationalization of all politics, because instead of having these regional quirks, regional within the state even, all these races sort of almost become close to statewide races where it's just Republican versus Democrat. You know, like it's less about our corner of the state is different or whatever. Have either of you guys ever gone skeet shooting?
Yeah.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
Like how long ago?
Like when I was a teenager, quite a bit. I was very involved in Boy Scouts.
Oh, well, you're like a sharpshooter then.
No, I wasn't very good at it.
Okay. I've done it a couple times. It was fun, but it's very thrilling when you do shatter the thing, but
The pigeon.
it also hurts the kickback on those guns. They're not playing around.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so governor, there's a race for governor.
District 7 first.
District 7. We should hit District 7. Go for it.
Nashville district that changed is District 7. It is the same race that we had the special election in last year, and it is a very similar primary. Vincent Dixie, who's a state representative in Nashville, and Darton Copeland are back running in the Democratic primary, as well as two other candidates. Both of them lost to Afton Bain last year, and now the district is slightly different in makeup, including it lost some of its Nashville chunk. So it'll be interesting to see who pulls ahead in that one.
Which presumably would have made it a little more challenging for her. Is that, is there thinking that...
Maybe for her, but she had decided not to run for that, I think, prior. I don't think that's relevant to Afton not running this year. But for Vincent Dixie, who did well in Davidson County, like he maybe is going to lose some people. Darden didn't do as well in Davidson County as some of the other candidates last year. So does he benefit from picking up some more of the suburban counties? And I think the biggest change is losing some of the black vote in North Nashville, which is a smaller version of what happened in Nashville several years ago and a much smaller version of what's happening in Memphis this year, but is another division of a voting block there. But
and now...
And that whoever wins that primary will be against Matt Van Epps, who won, of course, the special election last year and is in his first year as a congressman.
Yeah.
The Mark Green appointed successor.
Yes. Thank you. So, with that said, the governor's race, which people will have found it hard to avoid, the at least the primary between Marsha Blackburn and John Rose. Where to begin? What's the deal with this race, Sarah Grace?
That's a great question. This race is happening at Reagan Day dinners in counties near you. There have not been open public conversations or forums. John Rose, who is the District 6 congressman, and Marsha Blackburn, who's our senior senator, are running. They're both MAGA Republicans, though neither one of them is going to get a Trump endorsement.
The president decided not to choose between them. What was that, last month or something? He announced relatively recently that he wasn't going to make an endorsement. But so now they're both kind of, it almost seems like trying to imply his support without being able to claim it officially.
It is not a new thing in Tennessee for a Republican primary to boil down to everyone running to be the Trumpiest candidate right now. That's what's happening between the two of them. They both do actually have relationships because they've been in the federal delegation with Trump. But yeah, like Blackburn, there was a PAC that ran an ad for Blackburn with just a bunch of quotes of Trump talking about her last month. But she didn't run her first ad until this month because she's been polling so far ahead. And I should say that State Representative Monty Fritz is also running as a Republican, but Blackburn is anywhere from 15 to 30 points ahead of John Rose right now, depending on whose polling you believe, and has been up to 60 points ahead of John Rose. And Monty Fritz is well behind John Rose. So really it's between Rose and Blackburn heading into the primary. And John Rose was pretty quiet. He announced early last year that he would run, didn't really get out there and start campaigning much until this spring, didn't run his first ad until I think May. And then he spent millions of dollars on ads in the last 6 weeks and has been everywhere, and you can't avoid him. So it's been like each of them trying to gain name recognition, neither one of them really physically being out much and doing handshaking and the kind of campaigning you might have expected to see in a competitive primary.
Yeah, and I mean, at least tactically, it seems like Marsha Blackburn, she's been in Tennessee politics for a long, long time and doesn't really have to do much to make people recognize her name. So she's just sort of would seem to be trying to run the clock out on this primary, and then that will be that. Which
I think shows in her not running an ad until last week, which was a controversial ad where she smashes fortune cookies and is making a second ad like she did in her last Senate campaign that's anti-China. But I think she doesn't really have to campaign. It's more or less hers to lose. And there was some closing the gap with how much spending John Rose did on ads in June. And so you saw a little blip of her coming back and doing ads. But notably this week, Blackburn first said that she wasn't going to participate in the Channel 5 debate that was supposed to be between the three of them. She said it was because of votes, which is true, and she has a publicly published schedule of Senate votes, and she does have to vote in D.C. that day. And then when she said she wouldn't debate, John Rose pulled out, so they canceled the debate. John Rose then posted on Facebook that he's ready to debate anyone, anytime, but I guess not Monty Fritz by himself. I'm not sure what that decision-making was. But this was also all on the heels of about, 2 weeks ago now, Blackburn had a pretty infamous interview, if you could call it that, with Channel 5.
An attempted interview,
yeah. Which you referenced at the beginning of this, where she just kept repeating, I talk to Tennesseans every day. We're talking to Tennesseans every day.
Yes.
But
if you are the Tennessean she's talking to, please reach out to us.
But they're both going, and so the joke I made about Reagan dinners is every county Republican straw poll, because they're doing some event, or every Reagan Day dinner. They're doing these things where they're going to get fundraisers and they're going to get the kind of voter that they're after, I think, to win, but they're not doing like shoe leather, let's go meet constituents kind of campaigning.
Right. I was going to say, what's the biggest difference between the two of them? Is there a difference between the two of them that comes to your mind?
That's a good question. I think if you ask John Rose that, he would tell you it's his business acumen. So he's been the CEO of two businesses, one that he sold off, one that he bought and took over. Blackburn doesn't have much of a professional career. She's been a politician most of her adult life.
I was going to say, I suppose Rose, in theory, has a bit more of a claim to the I'm not a politician, even though he's been a congressperson for a little bit now.
Right. And he's been in Tennessee longer. That's his other thing, is he always brings up being a ninth generation Tennessean. Marsha, notably, is from Mississippi. Blackburn just absolutely owns name recognition and fundraising. If you were just looking from the outside and never had a discussion of endorsement, you would know that she's a Trump ally. It's very well documented. So I think she's got all of that going for her.
Another thing that John Rose would bring up if you asked him that is, and I think he brings this up in ads quite a bit, is after the 2020 election.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Both of them said that the results were sketchy, and, everyone remembers January 6, 2021. When all those people stormed the Capitol, and the Senate was in the process of whatever the term is.
Certifying
the election.
They were going to vote.
Yes.
And Marsha Blackburn had, said she objected to it, and then after all that happened, she changed her vote and voted to certify. John Rose has been making hay about that.
So going back to the thing you said about the Trump endorsement, I wrote a story last month because when Trump was in Nashville, or when he was in Memphis, the Republican delegation rode with him on Air Force One, and he told them, John's been good to me, I'm not going to endorse Marsha, which is what people had assumed he would do. That doesn't mean that he prefers one or the other, but the Rose camp would argue that decision was made because she was less than loyal to Trump by virtue of certifying the election results. Notably, Rose did later criticize what happened on January 6th and side with Pence on news interviews. So
both of their actions have logical holes in them that we don't necessarily need to fall into, but it's a little hard to make.
When I did that story,
coherent.
I talked to two members of the delegation who heard them say this, and one of them said, yes, we've seen Trump care about their allegiance during that month and that election. Anybody's allegiance, it's led to pardons and all sorts of other things. But also, no one knows what Trump is going to do. So there is, of course, still the possibility
could
any
haul
day that
off
he
tomorrow
changes his mind.
and bleat on Truth Social about which candidate he prefers. Yeah.
He just he endorsed Brent Taylor in the Memphis race, District 9, this week.
Real quick, on the Democratic side for governor, who's out there?
There's a handful of candidates. Certainly the one with the most name recognition is Jerry Green. I'll have a story on Monday that kind of breaks down the governor's race. But it'll likely be Green that goes against whoever wins the Republican primary, which will likely be Blackburn.
Mm-hmm. Well, people can look out for that story on Monday. Before we let everyone go, quickly, let's go over key dates again. Early voting has started as you're listening to this and runs through August 1st. I said let's run through the key dates. Those are the key dates, I suppose. So you can early vote now.
And the Nashville Banner has a voting guide on our website for different stuff you need to know.
Also a voting guide on the Nashville Banner's website, which is free to read. And you can subscribe to the flyer, our email newsletter. And you can read Sarah Grace's reporting and Steven's reporting. You can listen to past episodes and subscribe for future episodes to our podcast on the Banner & Company podcast feed. Thank you very much for listening. We're produced, as always, by Andrea Tudhope. And we'll see you soon.